Mitch, what did you think then of the first 15 lives of Harry August?
So I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite know what I was getting into initially, but as it sort of developed, the story changed quite dramatically. So at the start, it was just sort of like a autobiography of a normal man who's obviously got more to tell, and then it sort of turned into like like a murder mystery and like this sort of sci-fi like adventure with futuristic tech and a bit like what do you call it, alternate history, I suppose, but like Man in the High Castle, yeah, where
Yeah,
things have changed. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. And I think that they captured all the elements very very well. Like when he was living in the north of England, I got the very much Mr. Darcy, Downton Abbey theme going on. And yeah, no, so I thought it was very, very good. What did you think?
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I think it's interesting what you say about how at the beginning he's like a normal dude, and it's because of course he is, isn't he? It's only
Yeah,
through his lives that he develops into like something larger than life. Like obviously his first life is just entirely normal, and the second one is cut short from like childhood suicide as he thinks he's insane, and then he slowly develops his skills, and where he agonizes over whether he should kill this serial killer, and then later in his lives it's just the thing he does, like just every time I come back I make sure I kill this guy, and that's just that, and doesn't even think about it, just it does. It's an interesting development of character and setting, because even though it takes place between the same years, that whole like parallel reality time travel is a very interesting concept, because you aren't necessarily, you're jumping almost laterally, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Rather than like back in time, you hop over to the next one and just like right.
yeah. For a good long time, I was quite confused as to how it all sort of works. I'm not 100% sure if I'm totally down on the way it will work or not. Because I sort of assume that there's, like, if you're going, like, say you're born the year 1900, but
Yeah.
then you cut your life short, you say you commit suicide when you're 10 years old or something. Well, someone that then lives for 100 years at the same time at 1905, does that mean that you have to wait for them to? Do you have to wait for everyone in your stream to die before you get born again?
My assumption was basically you come like each like parallel reality is going along at its own rate, yeah, and that if you were to die at any point, you would come back at 1905 or whatever. You would come at that point regardless of what happened. And if somebody had outlived you by like 50 years but was born like a year later than you, they would still turn up like a year later with all that life. So I guess you are kind of like frozen in transit basically until like everything lines up. That seems to
Yeah.
be like that is to me what makes sense with regards to how they can transfer their information. Otherwise you would be like, oh, you died really early, right? No wonder we're all like out of sync.
Yeah, like we've no idea what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was great because it wasn't generic time travel. Like you could change things, but they would continue on in the one you left behind.
Yeah.
So, like, if you did kill someone, I guess actions did still have consequences. Like if you had a loving family or you did something horrible, both those consequences would carry on. Like it didn't remove you from the like moral like responsibility. And I loved when
No,
you
I
saw
think it would.
characters. Well, I don't know, because like if you in the book, to me, like there are certain characters that live like a life of debauchery, and then they want to have their minds wiped by like chemical and electrical like process, don't they? Because in the end it kind of hollows them out and they don't feel like they're actually, they're not enjoying their existence. But because if you were to like, no matter what you do, you die, but those people continue in the world you left behind. Like that world doesn't end, you know.
Yeah, it just continues for
Yeah.
infinity, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, until they do the quantum mirror and bring down the apocalypse, apparently. I
Yeah.
uh, I always thought that it was interesting that there wasn't like a single apocalyptic event. It was just the idea that as tech increased, we just like got to the point where we would always kill ourselves. Like it wasn't like the mirror turns on and it kills people. It was like, well, now there's more tech, so I guess there's more, I don't know, nuclear bombs or whatever. And like humanity was just destroying itself because it wasn't sure how to do with this tech that it wasn't really supposed to have. Like there wasn't a natural evolution or morals to come with it. I liked that it was still subtle as well. Like they didn't have ray guns or anything. It was like, oh, that's a solid state computer. That is, they're not going to be around till like the early 2000s. You know, that's that kind of like small.
Like
I don't know. Like, yeah, like,
there's the one section where he finds the person with who had a kidney transplant about 5 years too early.
Yeah,
it's very, you know, I mean, obviously for them it's very, very big, but it's quite minor, like in the grand scheme of things. But then just as things start to go on, I mean, when I think it is his 14 life where he has to deliver letters for people. And previously he'd been telling people about, you know, cathode ray tubes and things. And then in the next life, he'd tell them about solid-state computers, like in 1920s and 30s and things. So, like, he's almost, like, expedited that that research by, you know, plus 100 years. Yeah, so just get quicker and quicker and quicker. Like, I wonder if the quantum mirror is supposed to be like a... it's a symbol of humanity's knowledge, you know, and once it gets to a certain level.
I always kind of thought of it as perhaps like the singularity where, you know, like kind of machine learning would catch up, or some kind of like, because quantum mechanics is bloody confusing and I won't pretend to even have a fraction of like an understanding about it. But I like that it was ambiguous, like they weren't sure what it was going to do. But I also kind of feel like I could have done with a little more. I don't know. I'm really torn on this. Basically, the main villain, the antagonist, is also Harry's best friend, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they first meet each other, they don't even know they're both immortals, and they're just talking through. And eventually, it's like, oh, hang on, that idea doesn't come around for like the next 20 years. The only way you would know that, and then like. I'm trying to think what the
is it the theory of no? Is it it's a science thing, isn't it? Is it like the strong nuclear force or something? And he's like, oh, no one knows about that for 20 odd years, and then they both just sort of pause in their tracks.
Yeah, it's a very good moment. I'm trying to remember what what his friend is called.
Victor Rankis.
Yes, yeah. I thought it was such a weird one. The way like the story kind of finished, it wasn't anticlimactic, but it was a very strange. Like the way Harry won was so like subtle. Like I would say underhanded, but that doesn't feel right because we know Victor's exactly not like a saint by any stretch of the imagination. But like Harry won by just pretending to be the guy's friend for like several lifetimes and just playing. I was like. God, the amount of patience you would have to have with that it's just insane. And like he like literally dies to save him, even though he dies. And just the idea of quick, I'm going to write him a letter, and it wasn't exactly a haha fuck you. It was just I want you to know that I have dedicated so much time. And I suppose in the end the argument is because he even worked on the project for like a decade and was really into it. I think if it didn't bring around the end of the world, he would have been totally on board with Victor. Absolutely. And the apocalypse is a pretty good reason to like stop something. I can't tell if I felt it was anticlimactic or if it was just so kind of subtle that it almost passed me by. Like the book just ended and I was like, oh, I guess he won. Did you know what I mean? Just like there was no like. I
suppose like from his fourth life or something when. That girl comes up and says the world is ending. Yeah, and then he's like, and like, why would I care? Like, I'm dying now. She's like, and it's getting faster. And he's like, oh, okay, now it's my problem.
Yeah.
So after the like 10 lives, and he actually knows what the cause is. Because I suppose for a good long time, like he's no idea what it is, and even when they're talking about the quantum mirror,
well. I love
why
that
would
he
he instantly say, "Oh, it's got to be this random theoretical machine that
it
you're
takes
making"?
him 10 years to be like, I think, like, it's that kind of Mitchell and Webb, like, are we
Are
the
we
bad
the bad
guys?
guys? Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. It's brilliant. One of the best things about it, I would say, is that I really bought everyone as a proper person. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is clearly this cliche. This character is just a bit phoned in. Like, everybody felt like they were so well written, and like I listened to it on audiobook as well, so well performed that I bought everyone as like a legit person. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Everyone's motivations seemed to add up. There was maybe the CIA guy that was a little contrived, but then again, he was like putting on the persona of being Harry's friend as he tortured
I'm
him.
the
So
fucking good guy. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, so I guess even that, like, oh, he seems a bit fake, but he is like, that is the purpose. So I was really impressed by it. Like, it was, the whole book was like understated. Like, even when they did, like, you know, oh yeah, I'm gonna go kill this serial killer over and over again. And like the first time he does it, he gets so annoyed that he fucks it up and gets stabbed to death. And he's just like, God damn it! And he just goes and gets a gun and like has to wait like 20 years until he can do it.
Yeah.
The concept of like puberty and everything as well. Like, oh, you by about age 4 or 5, you got your mind back, but you have to go through puberty and just wait. Like, I thought like having the Cronus Club there to like expedite that was a really interesting concept. Like, because I've not thought about that as if, oh, you get to relive your life again. You got to deal with a lot of bullshit though. Like, no one's gonna take you seriously.
I mean, that's just. I mean, it was Veronica. No, Charity, the lady that comes around and collects the children.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn! Like, I can't imagine that. So you get all your memories back at like 5 years old. You're like, okay, so now I've got to go through. And she said that, you know, some of the families that she rescues them from are from like bad situations. So
Yeah.
you know, you're 5 years old and you remember, oh no, I get beaten maliciously for the next 15 years if I don't get out. You know, so I suppose his situation was.
It wasn't ideal, but
great.
it was pretty good, wasn't
like
it?
it wasn't, terrible by any chance. But the one thing that I really like, I thought all the characters really, like, I believe them all, like, all the motivations. But the way he was explaining his lives, like, it feels like it's like what I would do. But it's just going through it, and I was like, I think I'd do something similar. Yeah, you live your first life, of course. You completely, you have no idea. And then the second one, yeah, you'd go insane. And then the third one, yeah, I was really, I think it's what I'd do, you know.
I loved as well the concept of like the self-exploration. Like they know all the Kalachakra, like the immortals. Their third life is almost always like a spiritual journey, because everyone's like, I got to find meaning in this, man. Like, I've got to figure this out. Yeah. And then all of them seem to just come to the fact of, this is not working. It was great, and that was one of the few things I wish there was more of, because I felt like in the middle it dragged a little, and I'd have loved to have spent a bit more time with Harry in his early years, just like when he was in like Afghanistan looking at the architecture before, like I think it was basically before like the Gulf War and ISIS like was going to destroy everything. Yeah. And he meets that like mercenary immortal soldier who's just like, oh yeah, well, you know, next life, man, just you should come join us for a couple of lives, you know, just when you're young again, let's, you know, we'll fight a few wars together, it'll be fun. Yeah. So like, just the concept of that is like, I would like to see, because Harry's World War One experience is very like kind of understated, isn't it? Like, he never really gets into a battle or anything. He's like, oh, hang on, I know there's a tank here, so let's just hold back for a minute. Yeah. And I would have been curious to see what would have happened if they, because they could have played with it a little. But then again, I guess that wasn't really his character, was it? Like, he wasn't the macho hero or anything. He was just like a bit of a philosopher come scientist. I mean, I guess you're gonna get pretty like philosophic when you're an immortal. Like, you've got a lot of time just to sit around and think about like why this is happening.
Well, I mean, especially with him being a mnemonic, the fact that he can remember everything that's ever happened as well.
That's a real subtle but interesting change, because even amongst his peers, he is a anomaly, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. As because why would I think of the hero with a thousand faces?
Yeah,
It's the hero and what they go through. And I was like, but like, so obviously he's entered this new world. But how does it make him? How is he different and stand out from anyone else? Like, surely anyone could be Harry August. Yeah, right. Yeah, there's like every one in 1,000 Kalachakras are
yeah.
mnemonics, and Kalachakras are one in X amount of million anyway. So, like,
There's him, there's Vincent, and there's like one other dude you hear about. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
like
it's rare.
400 years past. Yeah.
I and I. Sorry, go on.
Oh, so the only thing that I didn't quite get is the whole, if you kill someone before they're born and then never ever born again. I'm like, I don't get that. Like, I don't.
I can only kind of take it as like just one of the the rules of the magic in that world, because I can see that if you it's kind of, to me it's almost like maybe a flow of water or an electrical current, which if you stop it in one life, it or like you take its jumping in point. Basically, I take it, like I imagine the consciousness like goes into like the next life, like it flows in somehow, yeah. And if
Yeah.
you can block off that point by not giving it the access, i.e., killing the mom, so there is no one to go into, I can kind of see it just like, I don't know, like your consciousness just gets lost in the ether or something. There's no like point for you to access the next life. That's all. That was kind of how I interpreted it.
Yeah, yeah, I sort of get that. Yeah, I
Um,
suppose really, like, it's probably best not to get bogged down in
well,
um,
Harry
the minutiae of
himself
it.
like admits it's like we don't know a lot. Like we don't know a lot. That's the whole point. In fact, the purpose of the quantum mirror is to actually figure out what is going on, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they decide it's best not to, because, well, evidently I wonder as well if it was not the quantum mirror itself so much, but the technology needed to create it that was causing it. Like the mirror might still be a good thing. It's just by the means of getting there ends up being so destructive that it's not worth it.
yeah. I think that's exactly the that's the symbolism behind it. Like, it's a symbol of the combined knowledge of man, because they talk about different nations chemical bombing people. 40 years before those sort of weapons were around, and jets and the rest of it. And I suppose it's like, if you can imagine the 21st century, but with I don't know, weapons of mass destruction inside World War Two. They've already got jet planes and things, but
Yeah.
it's going to be actually in World War One, isn't it? That they've already got
Yeah,
jet planes.
because they had a jet plane by the end of World War Two. That's the thing, is it's a subtle. It is the tech doesn't go like haywire. They don't have laser guns or anything. It
Yeah,
is like, oh, it's just about 40 years faster than it should be. All the tech is stuff we know, with the odd exception of like, oh, this might be like, they're taking it further and further. But it still feels very grounded, which made the quantum mirror a bit hard to really picture. But as I say, not really understanding quantum mechanics probably mean. I mean, I don't think really anybody understands quantum mechanics, but like
no,
it was a bit get out of jail free card. Like it was the MacGuffin, wasn't it? It was the hidden item, the whatever. It was like, well, this is just the thing people are striving towards, and I guess that was kind of the point. Like when I was really sad when Charity like had betrayed him, and it was
yeah,
all about like she was just like, I just want to see, because I thought it was interesting that like the first Kalachakra actually came about in about the 1800s, like not like in the ancient past, and then they backtracked it. You know what I mean? Like they made the Cronus Club and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe it was the first member of the Cronus Club and she
yeah.
made
That
it.
that was first member of the Cronus Club. Before that, they knew that they existed, but they never had a formal meeting place.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I kind of loved the idea of like being immortal but being stuck in one time, like, because it's a different spin on it. Like the idea that they would like send whispers basically through time, like asking questions, and you just get some like Greek philosopher just like, oh wow, have you heard about all the shit that happens in like the 21st century? It's mad. And it's just like,
You
I
see,
wonder.
I don't think it'd be worse, because there's a certain point where say if you were So they pass that message down from pensioner to child
Yeah.
to say, child to pensioner even. The universe is ending. But can you imagine like going back to Plato and just sort of saying, so everyone's got these like this glass with what's glass? Okay.
Take sand, well, silicon, well, heat up sand, and it's just like,
yeah.
oh, God.
Yeah, so they make microchips from sand, right? What it would just be like it just comes to a point, and it might be the same for us. Like someone comes in from the 33rd century, and they're like, okay, so you grab your flim flop, and it can make you, flag and hang, and you're like,
What's it?
yeah, I've got no reference at all, and I think that'd just be quite, yeah. How do you make a plumbus? I think it'd just be quite depressing, maybe, or that FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah, I could get that. I do see the thing that gets me is that unless the future just ends like fairly soon after the 21st century anyway, Harry would still have the same like issue, wouldn't he? Like the future goes on and there'd be all that shit happening after he dies, but he never seems to feel like he's missing out, because I guess he never, apart from that one time where he was like super healthy and had like that like the wife that like they knew they didn't love each other, but they were like really good like business partners basically, and he makes it into like 2010 or whatever, which for like the first time, and he sees like the 9/11 attacks and all this kind of stuff, and he's like, oh man, maybe mine was a pretty good like time period, which is crazy for a man that lived through World War One. But
yeah, I was gonna say,
so maybe it wasn't that bad. I feel like everyone seemed to be fairly, with the exception of Victor, who was the villain of this story, seemed fairly content with their lot in life. I don't know. Maybe that's just not what they're trying to get at. But
I suppose wouldn't you get to? I suppose there's probably they talk about there's two deaths of the Kala Chakra. That there's the real death and there's the brain death. Well, I suppose there's probably two lives of the Kala Chakra. There's the first one where you live like a mortal.
This is you, isn't it?
All the other ones where you live like a Kala Chakra. So you would just get bored, presumably, at some point.
Well, the concept of just like wiping the slate clean is like a really interesting, like, that one lady who like she lives a life of debauchery, drugs, and sex, and all this kind of stuff, and she's having basically a great time.
Akiba or something, is it?
I think so, yeah. I didn't want to pronounce her name because I knew I was going to butcher it. But like eventually she just gets to the point where she's like, this is not working for me. Like I'm just not happy at all. And she resets. And I thought that's so interesting because they only get like 3 or 4 lives, don't they? And then it all starts to blur together a bit. But Harry was just like a continuous, like, maybe it was easier for him because he had like continuous thought, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like he never really forgot anything.
Yeah, yeah, and you could actually separate your existences as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's a book that kind of really, you get the more out of it, the more you like dive into it, like thinking about it, because it does like pose a lot of questions that don't have like right or wrong answers. So what would you do if given that choice? What would you do if this, like he becomes a scientist and then he becomes a spy because it's just useful to have those kind of skills, but he doesn't really, he doesn't set out to be like live, die, repeat, or all you need is kill is the original or whatever, where like that is that you're going to become a super soldier and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And it's like, I might just become a doctor, see if I can help my mom with the cancer and stuff like that, and see if I can do this. And it's like,
or even the that Akiba when she's just like, I'm just going to do heroin until I'm dead because I know I'm going to come back anyway. So YOLO, really.
I guess so. It's a very, or perhaps the complete opposite of YOLO.
Yeah, you only live forever.
It's the type of book that I really enjoy more in retrospect than the actual reading of. Like it was a good read, but it's all the kind of the quandaries that it posed that I thought was like the best part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpackage. Absolutely. I mean, I thought it was very well written.
Yeah,
but as you say, it's like I think I would have gone through a very, very similar phase of Harry August. However, there's probably a part of me that would just sort of live a bit like Postal, and just sort of be like, what happens if I just go goddamn crazy?
Yeah.
But like, look, the second I got my memories back, I just go and burn down Hume House and try and assassinate the Queen, or do all that sort of stuff. But because at that point he's not even met the Cronus Club, so as far as he knows, he's the only
Well,
person on Earth that can do that. So he's like, I'm
yeah,
gonna,
I was gonna
cause chaos.
say that's kind of the purpose of the Cronus Club in a lot of respects, isn't it? Is to keep the equilibrium. Like you
Mm,
can do what you want, just like don't fuck it up for everyone else.
yeah,
Don't
there's like a
start
long
a
line of people
war.
that you might affect.
Just go and just go somewhere, get high, or join a mercenary group, or do whatever you want. Just don't rock the boat.
Yeah,
Which I kind of get, because the one example of rocking the boat ends up with the apocalypse. Well, I say once, and then there was the other one, wasn't there? There was the guy that did it much earlier in like the 1400s, who was like,
yeah,
and they like, you must torture this person. You must find him as a child and torture him. It's like, God, that's dark. It's like, and there's
yeah,
just the one dude who's the same as him, like the same as Harry, can remember everything, and everyone else is like, oh, can we really be bothered to do this? It's like, yes, you can. Like, we must
yeah.
do this. I Go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, I think the whole idea of history repeating itself, like I can just imagine it carrying on as well, because it's not like I don't, that's where I get drawn back to this whole Cronus thing, dying before you're born. When Charity went and killed all the stopped all the Kalachak from being born. She was like, it'll take a couple of generations or lifetimes for the Cronus Club to get their act together again. But I'm like, but I don't now see why. Let's say if everything was the way that it was, and like every Kalachak that was born didn't do anything that impacted history all that greatly, sure those people would still be born. So I mean, they just don't
They
come
are
back
going to be
again.
born, aren't they? Isn't the idea that she wiped their memories? Am I remembering it correctly? Because
Yeah, she said that only some of them were, most of them had the memories wiped, because they said that she was active from like the 1990s, which was before Vincent was born.
yeah,
And then it picked up in like 1910, but they said that like 8 out of every 10 had the memories wiped. The other 2 were killed because they were deemed too dangerous, or or something of the sort.
yeah.
Yes, so some of them were actually completely killed.
It's interesting that, because
Can you imagine
yeah,
going back to those people that used to be Kalachakras and just saying, "Come with me, you'll live forever," and then, well, actually, what? Because it's going to have to.
talk it out, Barlow. So what's confusing you?
I'm just thinking. So you go to someone that's not a Kalachakra, right?
Yeah.
And you say, "Come on, it's fine. You'll live forever. Just jump off this building with me," and then you come back to life, and then they can't remember, but you still can. So it's sort of a bit. So everyone is sort of a Kalachakra. They just can't remember it.
Well, that's an interesting point, actually. Like, is that the real difference? Does everybody relive, but these guys remember it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it couldn't it? Unless they're like a new soul, basically. But why would that be the case? Is it simply that the Kalachakras, realistically speaking, just remember it better, and the specials like Harry and whatnot have perfect recall? I mean, it could be like a scale, like a spectrum, couldn't it? And everyone's somewhere on it. But I
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't
I
know.
sort of confused myself, but as I was thinking about it, but there was actually like in the real world, there's this case of this child in like, Scotland, and like, from a very very young age, he thought that his name was something else, and he remembered him drowning, and he told them his original address and about the pool that he drowned in, and the road that he used to get there and everything. And they went to this place in Ireland, and this kid obviously hadn't left Scotland because he was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And they said everything was where it was the way that he said. Like the address was correct, the alleyway was correct, and like this child died in this pool. So like, I wonder if it's like if they're all just like one universe after another one, like carrying on forever.
Yeah,
But
I mean, you hear a
only
lot of
Kalachakras
stories
can.
like that, and I'm obviously like, it's the easiest option is to go, nah, it's just either some kind of elaborate prank or whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah, the
But
parents were in it, or something like
yeah,
that.
exactly. But you hear a lot of it stories like kids pretending or thinking or perhaps even being, if that's how you want to like view it, actually like remembering their previous lives or whatever, blah blah blah. And it's, you know, whether you believe it or not, in the real world, as a device for a story, I thought it was kind of brilliant. You know, it is one of them.
They could have done quite. The story could have been very, very different. You know, just considering the look how much that you could do,
How much power you could get. Like, he just casually builds a criminal empire that spans the globe in one life, doesn't he? Just so he can pay attention to where Victor is. But I love the idea of power being that boring. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I don't really want to rule the world. It's like, that's a lot of effort. Like, it doesn't really matter.
I suppose, like, to the one, and you've got the Cronus Club, where if they get too annoyed, they'll just say, right, you're going to take care of you. But at the same time, it's probably like, do I even particularly want to, you know, do all that sort of stuff? And I can
because
imagine
it would reset
15 lives, remembering every, you know, infinitesimal detail and just being like, you know what, just whatever. I mean, like, I probably... The worst thing I think for Harry at the end is to know that he now can't do the forgetting at all. Yeah. So the only way out of it is if he gets too depressed is to, you know, ask someone to, you know, stop him from being born.
Like, yeah, you know, properly, like, disperse his memory. Because that's an interesting thing. Like, if you take it as actually, like, you do get reborn, you just properly lose your memories, you know. Unless you changed like the world so much that person is never born, then
yeah, and I think that's what one of the things that kept going down for the generations was that, like, it got to a certain point in, like, I think I forget what they said now. It was like the 23rd century or something. They're like, we've heard nothing from past that date.
Yeah,
so you can assume that, you know, after you know, like, say there's like a nuclear holocaust, then all those people are never ever going to be born in that life. However,
they would come back, wouldn't they?
Well, you would sort of assume so. Maybe not in that next generation, but perhaps the one afterwards, or
it's an odd one. I don't know. I mean, maybe the truth is the flaw. There's just a little flaw in the logic somewhere. But it's the concept of, say, not with the Holocaust so much. The apocalypse. Like, if there's a nuclear apocalypse, but if somebody were to go back and kill your mother or grandmother or father or whatever, and they did it far enough back, like they said, like, let's say they send like a Kalachakra, like they pass it back like 2 or 3 lifetimes, so it's like 100 years in the past, 200
they kill Genghis Khan or something.
Well, basically, yeah, it's like, I'm not just going to kill your mom and then you could come back theoretically in the next life. I'm going to like kill a previous like ancestor, and then there's no way you can be born. Then I guess you just couldn't come back, could you? Do you know what I mean?
But you'd have to kill that same person time and time again.
That one person would, definitely. It's a funny one as well, though, because like I feel like just through like butterfly effects, basically, you know, Kalachakra would just disappear anyway because somebody in the past just decided to do something weird one time, you know.
Like, that's just, I mean, you know, when Cherry said that she got bored and left. Oh, pardon me. A recipe for you know, lemon sherbet, you know, to dig up 500 years later. Then yeah, like, I would sort of imagine that, you know, people might just do all sorts of crazy, maybe even quite small things, but you know, say you get into a drunken bar brawl with someone, and then that means that they break their arm and they don't go sailing a certain day, which saves their life, which, you know, affects the whole Western Hemisphere's worth of people, you know, like, so even if they were all born collectively and just did nothing, like everything must change so dramatically just for, you know, like, how can you take into account everything? Quantum mirror or not?
I think the truth is, and I kind of think that's where the whole like suspension of disbelief comes in, because essentially it is magic, isn't it? First, you know, that whole idea that whilst it might try to explain it through tech or, you know, religion or whatever, like, it's functionally like even the characters in the book with the powers don't know how it works. So as a reader, it is very much like, well, maybe, but that's as much as you can get. Like, you can only ever guess and you can never really know. But I just like books that can do this because so much of the books I enjoy and I read are like kind of they're power fantasy basically. This one person ends up doing this one thing and becomes like really successful or powerful or whatever, and it's kind of a feel good trip. You live like kind of through that person as they do, like they conquer the world or whatever, and that's cool. But Harry did not do that. Like his entire purpose, like for several lifetimes, was I just want to stop this one dude. I want to stop Vincent from achieving his goal. It was such like, on the grand scheme of things, so small. Obviously, it was saving the world, so it was a big thing as well. But like, I guess it's all in the writing, isn't it? Because
I mean, but that's back to morals again. Because like with the whole quantum mirror thing, if someone came to me and said that the world's ending, I'd be like, and shouldn't really bother me. And it's speeding up. Okay, but if I knew it wasn't going to affect me anyway, I'd be like, well, you know what? Like, what's the?
Why shouldn't I?
Like, I think that Frank, the FBI agent, CIA agent, had some really good things to say when he was like, what is your purpose, or do you think you matter more than other people because you remember and things? And I was like, well,
that was the one that stuck with me, like the idea of like worth, because
just like what is the purpose of you? And I liked how later in the book, they kept replaying those same, phrases that were said to him over and over again.
Yeah, like things that just got stuck in his head through lifetimes.
And I just think that I probably wouldn't. It's a bit like the there's a motorway next to an anthill. Like why would they? The people don't pay attention to the anthill, and it's a bit like having gods where say there was some other being that was so intelligent that he'd see us and just see like a bunch of apes walking around with primitive technology. Why would they go out their way to talk to us? And I think it'd be quite similar with them, because I have this superpower where what happens to you absolutely does not matter, because it will change again and you won't remember it. But with me, and especially being a mnemonic, like I'm going to remember that forever. So, and I can change the world and things. So it's a very, like when they call them like linear mortals and things, I'm like, they absolutely are, because they're so.
Well, I think if I were in that, I think I'd lose my moral compass quite quickly.
Oh,
because
that's what
the grand scheme of it, like you could keep your moral compass for like 1,000 years, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to keep going. Do you know what I mean? Eventually, you are going to probably, or at least I would, like you said, go a bit crazy, go a bit postal, do something, just as like a bit of cathartic release. I am just going to go nuts this lifetime. You know what I mean? Like it's, and I think it's the type of thing that, like, obviously a lot of them did. Oh yeah, I just join up and do wars because, like, that time where that 14-year-old Vietnamese kid like disemboweled me with a bamboo stave. Like, God, what a rush. Like it's just that kind of thing. It's like, Jesus, I guess like it would become something like that. It's like, I have not died like that before.
Well, that's the thing. Everything would just become so mundane. I mean, So after the first 15 lives of Harry August, so he remembers those all perfectly. Like, what the hell does he do now? Like he's had a criminal empire. Like he's killed his best friend and mortal enemy. He's saved the world. He's been in the military like a bunch of times. Like, what does he do now?
It's a very good point, because I almost like. Perhaps that's
just
why
like,
I found
I might make that quantum mirror,
Yeah, like eventually, like 100, 200, 300 years from now, you might be like, well, it's wasn't that bad of an idea. Maybe if I could do it in secret and it wouldn't end the world or whatever. Because it's such an interesting thing that, like, I felt like it's not the conclusion to Harry's story. And perhaps that's why I found the ending just a little dissatisfying, because he really... Because he is essentially indefinite, isn't he? He just keeps going. This could, in a long enough span of things, in the giant scheme, this could just be a blip on his radar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that whole end of the world thing back then. That was good times, man. What was that guy's name? Oh, Victor. Yeah, he was. I think he was pretty cool. You know, like,
Yeah.
because he could just be like, because even Harry, like with Perfect Recall, there'd just come a point where you'd have done so much other stuff that it just wouldn't be that big of a deal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm sort of thinking back to Altered Carbon, where the people can just come back time and time again.
that's a real fascinating one, isn't it? There's a book of that as well, actually, not just a TV show.
Yeah, it was based on a novel.
Yeah. Maybe we should look at that at some point.
Yeah, yeah. But to think that maybe we should. But to think that I don't know. Like I think maybe like say like a normal human lifespan is somewhere between 60 and 90 years. Depending on where you live and how you live and all the rest of it. And in those years, you can use quite a few of them. But I do just wonder like how you would occupy yourself for 1,000 years, and you could probably knock off like 200 with puberty and getting old and all that sort of thing. But I don't know. I sort of get what you mean about Harry his story not finishing, because I suppose, I mean, there could be the next 15 lives of Harry August, or 16 to 30 lives of Harry August, because he's not going away unless someone
does something
off him in the past. Yeah.
Well, also at this point, he is probably the most powerful of them, because a lot of people are dead or don't have their memories, but he does. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's the most experienced.
And he knows them all as well, like, so he could find them all, presumably, and and do whatever he needs to. He could find all their points of origin or something, or he could, God knows what he could do, really. I mean, you think at the end of it, like, you probably just sort of say, right, I'm going to see what happens if I become, the Prime Minister or something, or I try and become, Emperor of the Earth, and just. Yeah, so I suppose you have to keep it fresh, wouldn't you? But
without the Cronus Club to oversee and like kind of hold him down, basically he can kind of do anything, can't he? Do you know what I mean? Like, there isn't the structures, like, the way a lot of people don't commit crime, because in the end, like, the hassle of the repercussions to the law and all that is more problematic than the actual, like, whatever you would gain out of committing the crime. But with Harry, there is basically the immortal government is gone. There's no overseers. He is the
ultimate authority, I suppose,
within his timeline. Yeah, there's like no one else left. And not just that, like, Harry didn't spend his years like idly doing shit. Like, he wasn't going out and getting like, completely wasted and dying of heroin. Like, he was like military, then spies, and this, then that, and a doctor, and a this, and a that, and it just goes on and on and on. Like, he's a very well prepared guy, like.
And he was like one of the world's leading scientists as well for, like, I don't know, like probably the best part of a lifetime, like, collectively.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
I almost just now want to see what he does. I think that's just it. I was like, okay, what's next? Come on, Harry, let's step this up. Well, like, you've dealt with this bullshit. What are you doing now?
But the next thing that I think I would do after this is I'd try and look for some way of being immortal, like some way to stop aging or something, because it just seems that to not know what's going on in the past, I think, is something that everyone can share. But to know that you're missing things in the future and you could always potentially get there, I think that must be more.
You'd probably experiment with like cryo freezing or some shit, wouldn't you? So, well, if I die, I'll just come back. But if I don't,
yeah, I'm in the future. Yeah, it's I mean, I'm sure there won't be another one, and I think it was a very, very good ending, and I think it was very, very good the way it went through. Like, it read very, very well. I was really enthralled in bits that I didn't expect as well. Like, when he meets that Mr. Hume at the end, and he's poor in bed.
Remind me, what is he? What's going on?
He's the master of the house where he's working.
Yes, yeah.
His family basically,
it's his father, isn't it? Basically,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
his
yeah. Like
biological
he's
father.
actual, yeah, yeah. And so he's basically saying that I'm poor, I've got no money. Can you help me out? And even like these bits that are quite trivial, I suppose, like in the grand scheme of things. Like I was so engaged in Harry's character that I don't know, like I was just really, really enthralled. And when his first wife is with him at and Vincent marries her, like
Yeah,
again, I was so like, oh god, I was really, really,
I
I
feel
really related to
like
the character.
yeah, like he was very well written, and perhaps this would change depending on who's reading it. You know, like it. I felt like I could identify with Harry. Like I can't really think of anything where I was like, "Come on, Harry, like that's a bit dumb," or "Don't do that." I was like, "Yeah, no, that seems about right. That feels like an appropriate response to this situation."
Yeah, through
Uh,
all the lives, like even something as, obviously as weird or like spectacular as coming back to life. I'd be like, yeah, that's what I'd do in my second life as well, and my third, and my fourth. Just like it just seemed very, very. It seemed like the most common sense approach in that world.
it's just I don't know how to describe it except for the fact that it felt grounded as much as it
Yeah,
was supernatural and sci-fi and all this other elements. The fact that it started off like in what was it, the 1920s? Yeah, it was about the 1920s, wasn't he? He was born in the 1920s because he every now and again he'd make it to like the 2000s. So
yeah, yeah. So
so
yeah,
like the fact that it's like it's modern day but like not quite, like just a little bit behind. It gave it a really interesting like vibe because whilst it was definitely a sci-fi and all this kind of stuff, it just I don't know. It was a very unique blend for me, and as his lives changed, like you said, he changed. It turned from like just a biography into like a spy thriller and all this other stuff. And I don't know. It's just a very unique book. I can't think of anything else I've read like it.
yeah, same really. I mean, I often read fiction, um, but yeah, it's very, very unique. Like talking about Altered Carbon earlier, it's probably one of those where it sort of makes you question. They just sort of throw all these different, they throw in like a curveball, and then you sort of make a story around it. And yeah, it's very unique and yeah, excellent. Really, yeah, I'd read it. I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah.
I bought the ebook, but I was reading something else at the time, so I just got the audiobook. And yeah, and the way that it was read out, yeah, absolutely loved it. So, yeah, good recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's just it, isn't it? Okay, so would you recommend this book? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, hands down.
So I picked that book. What do you want to read next?
And you know what? I don't think I've got anything. Well, I do have things next in my read list, but as to whether, let me just have a quick look. So next in my read list is so I'm currently reading Thrawn, Heir to the Empire, the second book in Timothy Zahn's series of Star Wars.
Okay.
And I was listening to the audiobook A Space Odyssey, which was wrote at the same time as the film A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
But my next to read is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Factfulness, 10 Reasons We're Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think, by Hans Rosling. And Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. So those are the ones I was going to tackle next, but they're all they're all non-fiction, and there might be heavy reads. So
I think it's okay. We can make our way through it. If you, which one do you want to deal with? Do you know?
I think let's have a quick look to see how if Sapiens, because that's one that everyone's reading at the moment. Like it seems to be like a real hot topic. It's by what's his name? Yuval
Noah
Harari.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yuval Noah Harari. Yeah, and everyone keeps saying like it's excellent. So if we want to perhaps try and tackle that one and see what.
Yeah, I'll get that one and I'll crack on with it. What is it? It's about 15 hours, so that's not too bad at all. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's better than I thought actually. I've actually already got a hardcover at home, but Yeah, yeah. So if we want to tackle that one then, and then say we try and meet up again same time next month, perhaps, or we just if we
Yeah,
haven't read it by
whenever,
that
man.
point,
You
we
know, whenever it's
just
done. Let's not like put pressure on ourselves. I'll probably
yeah,
just, I'm close to the end of I'm reading a book called Enchanter. I'm close to the end of that, and then I'll just pick this one up, and we'll just go from there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, sounds good.
Cheers, man. It's been good. I look forward to the next one.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks so much, bro. I'll speak to you later.
See ya.